But in the final moments when hope had guttered out and only instinct remained, something extraordinary happened. A hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed him by the collar. Not a strong man's hand, nor a woman's, but something in between. Calloused yet gentle, firm yet reassuring. It was a hand that smelled of earth and rain, of life and resilience. The same hand dragged him out of the water, inch by agonizing inch, until his entire body was hauled onto dry land. Then, when his heart threatened to burst out of his chest, a voice rumbled in his ear, deep and gravelly like distant thunder. "Don't ever swim against the current again, boy, unless you want to dance with the water spirits." Then, as suddenly as it started, the rescue ended. The hand disappeared back into the swirling waters, leaving Tom gasping on the bank, shivering uncontrollably. His clothes stuck to him, heavy with mud and water. He looked back at the creek, now raging with unnatural force, and searched for the hand, for the face, for the savior who had pulled him back from the jaws of death. But the current was relentless, carrying away everything except the echoes of the voice, which rang in Tom's ears like a warning bell. Only one thing was clear: his life had been spared, but for what purpose, he didn't know. Tom stumbled home, his steps uncertain, his mind reeling from the events of the night. The image of the hand, strong yet gentle, was seared into his brain. Who was that mysterious savior? Why had they saved him? And why had they vanished without a trace? Sleep offered no escape from the haunting questions. Each time Tom closed his eyes, he saw the churning waters, felt the icy grip of the current, and heard the voice booming in his ears. 3 days turned into a week, and still there wasn't a shred of evidence, not a single clue to unravel the mystery of the hand that had reached out from the creek that fateful night. The townspeople, tight-lipped and wary, whispered tales of the treacherous waters, of how many dared to challenge it and never returned. They spoke of local legends, of ancient spirits that lurked beneath the surface, waiting to claim unsuspecting souls. Tom dismissed their stories as superstitious nonsense. There had to be a rational explanation, something concrete. So he returned to the creek, determined to find answers. The water, now placid and serene, offered no clues. It mirrored the cloudless sky, reflecting the sun's warm gaze as if nothing untoward had occurred there the night before. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The memory of the hand and the voice faded into the background of Tom's thoughts, becoming a persistent ache rather than a searing pain. Life, as they say, went on, but something had irrevocably shifted within him. The carefree young man who had challenged the creek was gone, replaced by someone older, wearier. He listened intently to every word, absorbing their wisdom and understanding. He learned about respecting nature's forces, about humility in the face of the unknown. And bit by bit, the fear that had gripped him that night began to recede, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. He realized that he owed his life to the creek, to the hand, to the voice. Their roles in his life were indecipherable, their motives inscrutable. But their impact on him was undeniable. He carried this newfound reverence for life, for nature, and for the mysteries that lay beyond his understanding for the rest of his days. The hand that reached out of the creek remained a mystery, a symbol of the unseen forces that shape our lives. But its touch had taught him a lesson he would never forget. Sometimes, in the darkest depths of our struggles, when we feel we're battling against insurmountable odds, help can come from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, what we perceive as our greatest challenges are, in reality, our greatest opportunities for growth, understanding, and underwater, pinned under a log. My foot was jammed in a crevice. My head was bleeding. I kept getting sucked under, and I thought, this is it. Then I heard a voice. I kid you not, it sounded like God speaking right to me. Grab the rope, grab the rope. There was a thick yellow rope knotted at the end. I lunged for it and grabbed it. Thank God, right? But then it snapped tight and yanked me up, pulling me from under the logs. But I was too weak to hang on. I slipped. My fingers curled around nothing but air, and that's when those strangers came and hauled me out, dried me off, wrapped me in blankets, and drove me to the hospital. They saved my life. At first, I couldn't remember anything. The doctor said it was probably shock. What was the last thing you remember? The first words I could choke out were, "The rope, the voice. Who saved me?" The doctor just shook his head and smiled sadly. Must have been a lot of adrenaline pumping in, voices, whispers, hallucinations. It happens sometimes. But nobody was there. I looked around. There was nobody there. The Coast Guard searched for days. My car was found smashed against the rocks near the cove, but there was no sign of anybody else. No footprints in the sand, no broken branches, no discarded ropes. Like whoever saved me vanished into thin air. I walked out of the hospital 5 days later. My wife, bless her heart, she was waiting for me with my favorite pizza and a mountain of paperwork. Insurance claims, medical bills. She didn't even stop to ask me questions. She just handed me a pen and a stack of papers and said, "Fill these out while I make us some coffee." She knew I wasn't right, not fully there yet. But even with all the medication they pumped me full of, my mind kept replaying that day, searching for answers. The voice, the rope, the rescuer. I needed to find them. I had to thank them. I owed them my life. So I started going over everything in my head, everyone I knew who lived by the cove, anyone who might have seen me. And that's when I remembered Old Man Hemmings. He lived way down by the southern cliffs. Nobody really knew much about him. Kept to himself, didn't talk to many people. I wondered if maybe he'd seen me, if he'd launched his boat and come to help. So my wife and we grabbed some sandwiches and headed down there. It took us 3 hours to reach his place. We passed fishermen on their boats, hikers coming back from the coast, even a helicopter crew doing a search pattern. But we didn't see or hear anything, no sign of any recent activity. When we finally reached the house, it was dark inside. No lights, no sounds, no sign of life. We hesitated on the porch for a minute, wondering if we should leave, wait longer. Then I knocked, just a quick rap on the door. And I waited. 1 knock, 2 knocks, 3. Each tap of my fist on the wood echoed strangely in the stillness of the afternoon. And then the door swung open. Startled, I jumped back. That's when I saw it, scrawled across the welcome mat in big black letters, "Go away." I froze. Was this some kind of sick joke? But the door was still open. I peered inside. "Hello? Is anybody home?" No answer, so I stepped in. The interior was dim, lit only by slivers of daylight under the boarded windows. Cobwebs hung in the corners and dust lay thick on every surface. It looked like a haunted house, abandoned and empty. Except in the corner, beneath a tattered American flag, was a rocking chair, and in that chair sat an old man with kind eyes and a white beard. He motioned to a spot beside him. "Sit down, son. I've been expecting you." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. How did he know? How did he save me? In a shaky voice, I whispered, "You saved my life. The rope, the voice." "Why?" The old man smiled. "Because you asked softening scars, but not erasing them. It's been 25 years since that night, and Tom still remembers every second of it. Now he lives 1,000 miles from that cursed creek road. He and Sarah built a good life together. Kids, now grandkids, laughter around the dinner table, warmth instead of cold. On the outside, Tom looks like just another man enjoying his retirement. But when storms roll in, when thunder shakes the sky and rain pounds on the roof, something inside him stirs, a shiver, a whisper of panic, the phantom taste of muddy water in his lungs. He glances at Sarah, asleep beside him. He traces the gentle, weathered lines at the corners of her eyes. And he thinks, I almost never had this. I almost never knew her laughter, never saw her gray hair, never held our grandchild in my arms. because I was too stubborn to turn around. People ask Tom sometimes, "What were you fighting that night? Was it the storm? Was it nature?" And Tom just smiles, shaking his head. "No, I wasn't fighting the water. I was fighting myself." Because the real antagonist that night wasn't the creek. It wasn't the rain. It wasn't even bad luck. It was pride. Pride whispered in his ear, "You can handle it. Don't back down. Don't admit weakness." And if he had listened to that voice 1 second longer, he would be dead. His revenge wasn't against an enemy out there. It was against the arrogance inside him. And that's what makes this story more than just survival. It's a lesson, a warning. Even today, Tom wonders about the rope. Who threw it? Who shouted? Who disappeared without a trace before the fire trucks arrived? Some people laugh and say it was a farmer, someone who didn't want credit. Others swear it was divine intervention. Tom doesn't argue. He doesn't need an answer. All he knows is that someone, or something, decided his story wasn't finished yet. And for that, he's grateful. When Tom sits with Sarah now, watching their grandchild play in the yard, he feels something deeper than happiness. Gratitude, humility, the quiet knowledge that he was given extra time. "Every storm reminds me," Tom says softly, "life doesn't hand out second chances often, but when it does, you'd better not waste them." And that's the truth of Tom's story. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't out there. It's inside us. The voice of arrogance, of stubbornness, of ego. And sometimes the sweetest revenge is when life forces us to face that enemy and win. Because winning against pride doesn't just save your life, it gives you back your future. The old folks around here have a saying, "Pride can make you strong, but it'll also break you." Tom proved that right. He was always a hard worker, strong and stubborn as an ox. Never backed down from a challenge. But sometimes, Sarah says, shaking her head at the memory, you were just plain stubborn. You could have hurt yourself. Like the time he wrestled that steer just to prove he could do it, or when he refused to leave the creek while the water was rising, insisting it wasn't that bad, but it was getting bad enough to take his life. The old Tom would have wrestled anything, argued with anyone, even himself, and that's what made the new Tom so grateful. He fought that night, sure, but not against the elements. He fought against himself. He subdued the beast inside, the beast of arrogance, and that was his greatest victory. He admits now that the storm that night was the worst he'd seen in years. Lightning split the sky, thunder rattled the windows, rain lashed against the house like a whip. But it was the creek that was the real trouble. It was rising fast. Each surge of water topped the banks a little more. And then suddenly, the old wooden bridge collapsed. Tom was trapped on the other side, his truck abandoned on the far bank. Didn't think much of it at first. He was a good swimmer. He could handle this. He just needed to get to higher ground. But the current was strong, tugging at him, pulling him downstream. That's when fear finally pierced through his stubbornness. He struggled to stay upright, his lungs burning as he gasped for air. He thought of Sarah, of the kids. He didn't want to die. Not like this. Not when there was still so much he wanted to do. Then out of the darkness, a rope. Strong hands yanked him from the water. He clung to that rope, coughing and sputtering as someone pulled him toward the bank. But when he looked back, he saw only darkness and the swirling water. Whoever saved him was gone. And by the time help arrived, all they found was Tom, shaken but alive, and the rope, which had washed up on the bank. They searched for the owner, whoever had thrown the rope, but they were gone, vanished into the storm. By the time the sun came up, the water had receded. The creek was calm again, almost peaceful. And Tom knew then that he had cheated death. Pride almost took his life that night, but humility and fear had saved him. He vowed then to never forget that, to carry that lesson in his heart, not just for the rest of his life, but in every moment of it. And that's the spirit of Tom's story. We all wrestle with our inner demons sometimes, our stubbornness, our arrogance, our ego, but those demons can drown us if we let them. The trick is to recognize the struggle, to fight our inner battles, because that's where the real victory lies. And when we win that battle, life gives us a second chance, a chance to live, to love, to hope again, just like it did for Tom. If this tale touched your heart and opened your mind, give us a thumbs up. Share your own stories of struggle and triumph in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe to be part of our community. Together, we can explore the depths of humanity and the heights of the human spirit. Thank you for walking this path of life with us. We'll see you soon.